Okay guys, Hallowax here, back in my basement. And what I want to talk about tonight is the alignment of the stencils. It seems that a couple guys, seems like a couple of them have been having problems aligning the booster with the number one with number two. And once you put the clamp on, and we lock the clamp in orientation with the grub screw and the pommel cube, you want this stencil to line up in between the clamp where it's supposed to be. So I've seen a lot of debate about this online. So I figured, well, I'm gonna show you guys how I line up my red lines, and then if you don't want to go out and buy the cheap tools that I use, I'm going to show you some tricks around the house to make this line. So let's begin. Okay, so the next step is we're going to make sure that we lock the hilt together the way it's designed, so it's bottomed out here, and then just tape it together so it can't move, because if it moves while we're making our line, it's pointless. So lock it in, tape, and we're ready for the next step. Honestly, if you're going to lock this in with set screws, now's the time to do it. When I do all my builds, I put set screws in there behind the clamp so you can't see them, and lock it together. So if you're going to set screw it, it's better off doing it now before you do the line. Set screw it and you don't have to worry. If you're not going to set screw it, just add some tape. First, the easiest way that I can come up with is this angle iron. I learned this trick back in the late 90s now. Wow, that's a long time now. With when I was building proton packs, I used to be really involved with the Ghostbusters community back then. Built many packs, and I would one of the hardest parts was drawing a straight line on a cylinder on the back of the proton pack. And my father came up with this quick idea about some angle iron, so I got a piece of angle iron big enough for the tube. Actually, the tube was called the booster tube, believe it or not. And we just put the booster tube on there, drew a line, and that's how I would drill my holes to mount it to the pack. So the same thing here is I take my straight edge here, and because the booster is higher than the regular hilt itself, and the regular hilt is even all the rest of the way, I put the angle iron on the saber like this. You can put the rest of this on the table. Actually, is probably the easiest way. Line up the red line with the edge of the angle iron, and then with a pencil mark exactly like we're gonna do this for real. So we'll line up the red on the edge, and then I want that on top there. And then with my pencil, just mark, this is stencil 2, and then stencil, this might be, I don't want to say the numbers because it could be wrong, but stencil possibly 3, 4, I don't know. But mark my lines here, and then even up here, you can get it, even on the wind vane, you can mark it all. When you go to mark it though, make sure you have a sharp pencil, and that you keep the pencil on a 90 degree with the V2 itself, because if you're down here like this, like I am now, I am not 90 degrees with the angle iron, and the line is off. So that's one way that I line up my red lines on the Trents stencils. That's the easiest way for me. This angle iron, it was like 3 feet long. It cost me $8 at Lowe's. It is 16th by 1 inch by 3 feet long. I believe that's the actual that might be the part number right there, 11351. If you want to go out and buy that, I just cut it down to the length of the hilt and use that. And if you look here, I don't know if you can see the pencil lines. It's spot on. So that's one way to do it. The next way, I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so here comes another Trent tip. if you have some framing like this, some molding in your house like this, whether it be in a doorway or trim around a bookshelf or anything, you could actually, as long as the ground is flat, this is my basement, so cement pretty flat. As long as it's flat, it's going to work fine. You just take your V2, let's line up our red line. Sure enough, all our pencil lines work. So this trick comes from Trent. It was a pretty ingenious trick. If you don't have this kind of trim on your door, open the door and use the edge of the door. That would work too. And for those who don't have straight edge molding around their house, we'll use the door. Woo! Spot on. Okay, now you can do it this way too, but this way you have to be pretty precise when you do it, because the saber is in two and you can move it. So I make sure to lock it all the way, and then I put some tape on the back. That way it stays locked in place. I also do this when I put the clamp on, but if you notice the markings on there, there's a reason I have this. I'm going to explain it in an upcoming video. So we're going to lock the two parts together, put the clamp on, and now because there's tape on the back, it's a very tight fit. Okay. And now we gotta get our orientation in. So we gotta should have been prepared, and we got the clamp card. Put our clamp card in so we get the right tension. Lock her down. And now we've got to get the right orientation. So remember, in the other videos, we have decided that the grub screw is in lined center with this pommel cube. And then this edge here, oh, here goes the camera. We put the straight edge here, and we want this edge here, if I bury it in, wow, you can't see that. If I bury it inside the clamp straight edge here, we want this edge lined up with this edge. So we'll move the clamp over just a little bit. What Trent and I have noticed is we have Roman's clamps here, and their bends are just a little bit different than a vintage bend. So depending on this is perfect now. Lock it in, just double check, perfect. And if you also notice, the screw lines up with the box. On a vintage clamp, if you look at my clamp, it's a little bit more. You can see with the this design here. Let me go grab it. Okay, so here's my vintage clamp. Like I was saying, you can see how it's just a little bit different. These are more 90, whereas these are more on an angle. Let's see if you can see that. And with that being said, the vintage, the box lines up with the, you can't see it. I'm screwing up pretty big today. The box lines up with the screw. On this one, it kind of hugs the other side of it. Kind of hugs this side. So anyway, if you have a Roman's clamp, and as long as you put it on there, put the grub screw in the center of this pommel cube, the one right of the D-ring, one with the hole, right there, put that in the center. And as long as you put the clamp on and line up a straight edge with this pommel cube here on this edge, line that up, we're going to be locked in. So next, what I would do is loosen it, bring it around, line this at this. What I'm doing right now is to put my mark for my red line to continue. Put this on, bring this over onto my red line, and then if you look, there's my pencil line. There it is. So it's still good. the clamp doesn't belong in this location, but we're just using the straight edge of the clamp to line up the red line with our next stencil line. And if you want to get gutsy, if you look at this now, I bring the ruler up a little bit more and I press it into the edge of the clamp. It's perfect on the pencil line up there too. The further you go, well, you get the bigger straight edge. All the way is dead set now. Look, I don't know if you can see it, but there we go. So that's another way I do it. If you don't want to buy the angle iron, or I swear by this. I grabbed this thing at Lowe's, I think $4. I use this thing all the time, not just for measuring. I don't even use it basically for measuring. I use it for a straight edge. So I swear by that. But if you don't want to invest in these tools, I mean, you can use any kind of straight edge you want. I mean, you can even use a Snorlax if you want. Put the Snorlax in there, straight edge, in line with the clamp, boom. We're on our pencil. Even look at the bottom, the red line, boom. We're good. So that's that's my tricks to lining up the clamp. That's my tricks to lining up the stencils. Number 2 stencil is pretty important. See a lot of people talking online about how it's not lining up, but if you do these steps, it should line up no problem. Another thing is, don't rush anything. What's the big rush? You know, just double check everything like we just did tonight. I put it in my angle iron, made my lines, went over to the door frame, double checked it. Yep, went to the door, perfect. I mean, don't rush. So I hope this helps you guys out. And I'm still working on the clamp videos. That should be wrapping up soon, so keep an eye out for that. I appreciate everything, and I hope you guys all have a good night.